This week on Rock Feed After Dark, things are really heating up in the rock world, to say the least. We've got so much to get to tonight. Disturbed's David Draiman called out Green Day's Billie Joe Armstrong after Billy switched up the lyrics of Jesus of Suburbia at Coachella to make a statement on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Plus, Guns N' Roses' former manager is taking direct shots at Axl Rose with some heavy claims about how the band really works. And Rammstein's Till Lindemann just pulled off a big legal win that's got a lot of people talking. And also, The Who has officially fired their longtime drummer after being less than impressed with his playing at a legendary show. We've got so much to get to, and later on, we're joined by legendary Avenged Sevenfold frontman M. Shadows. You don't want to miss that conversation. Stick around tonight on Rock Feed After Dark. So over the weekend, Green Day was one of the featured headliners at Coachella. They're also set to headline once again this weekend. And we all know that Billie Joe Armstrong, he'll change the lyrics around from time to time, as he did during this performance. And this time, it was during the song Jesus of Suburbia, and he changed those lyrics to reference that horrific conflict between Israel and Palestine. And after that lyric change, you have Disturbed vocalist David Draiman issuing a challenge to Green Day's Billie Joe Armstrong to sit down with him and hopefully hear his side of things in a respectful way. He says he has a lot of respect for him, and he would just like to share his point of view. Obviously, David's family still lives in Israel. It's a matter that's deeply important to him, and I'm sure this issue is also very important to Billie Joe Armstrong. Here is what David had to say in response to that performance from Green Day. Green Day performed on Saturday night to a capacity crowd at Coachella. They were one of the featured headliners, and they will play again next weekend. The band had a career-spanning set list and even threw in a couple of covers, including Black Sabbath's Iron Man and even a few bars of Tom Petty's Free Fallin'. And for vocalist Billie Joe Armstrong, he has never shied away from expressing his political beliefs, and during the performance at Coachella, as we have heard from him in the past, he changed the lyrics from American Idiot to I'm not a part of the MAGA agenda. It's clear that he is not a supporter of President Trump, but that wasn't the only lyric change during their set. As the band was performing their hit single Jesus of Suburbia, he changed the line, running away from pain when you've been victimized, to running away from pain like the kids from Palestine. He even extended it to let the message sink into the crowd. And this isn't the first time that Billie Joe Armstrong has expressed his views on the horrific conflict in the Middle East. During a recent show in Malaysia, he held up the Palestinian flag to the fans in the audience. After Billie Joe Armstrong's comments on stage at Coachella over the weekend, Disturbed frontman David Draiman has extended an olive branch to Billie Joe, hoping to engage with him in a friendly discussion for two music industry peers. This is what Draiman had to say in response to that lyric change from Billie Joe. He said, "Open offer to Billie Joe Armstrong from Green Day. You know I respect you, brother. I'd love to have the opportunity for you to hear the Israeli-Jewish side of this horrific war. I'm available to discuss wherever you are. No judgment, nothing preconceived. Let me know." He said, "Dialogue. We need more of it. We need to stop simply and constantly judging one another, sticking to our respective teams and narratives, whatever the cost. We need to be able to talk to one another. Stop burning bridges. Stop building them." Another fan said, "When only one side is calling for dialogue and the other side is trying to conquer, dialogue is not the solution." To which Draiman responded saying, "I'm not talking about dialogue being able to stop someone intent on killing you. It won't. I'm talking about having a dialogue with everyone, exchanging ideas and thoughts in a calm, respectful, productive manner so that we don't get to the point of wanting to kill each other." Such a heartbreaking situation. And next up, we have a new interview from a former manager of Guns N' Roses who is calling out Axl Rose, to say the least, talking about the inner workings of the band. Now, this manager is interesting because he was brought on to work with the group at a time when very few people wanted to work with them. They were not well known like they are now, and they were on the verge of being dropped by their label. And after he was brought on, they released Appetite for Destruction about a year later, and the rest was history. But he says that internally, he feels like Axl Rose was really, really hard to work with, and he was ultimately pushed out of the band. But what he had to say about the band's career after he left was quite interesting, to say the least. Here's what he had to say about Axl Rose and how Guns N' Roses really works in that interview. The former Guns N' Roses manager appeared on the Appetite for Distortion podcast, the 500th episode, and he said that Axl Rose is a control freak and ultimately it was a dispute with the legendary frontman that pushed him out of the group. He said ultimately, over the years, Axl Rose has increased his power over the band to the point that he now takes a whopping 50% of the income from the group. He said, "It's a control thing with Axl." Here's another little snapshot that's illuminating and goes to forming a correct perception. Axl takes 50% of the income of Guns N' Roses now. 50%, okay? That to me is anathema. He is not Guns N' Roses. They were 5 individuals. It was a chemistry. It was a moment. But Axl wants to be in control of everything, all the time. And look what that gets you. A boring solo record and a shitty thing of punk covers. And that's it. Elsewhere in the conversation, he revealed that Geffen Records wanted to drop the band because of how bad things were internally. That is, before they released Appetite for Destruction. He said, "They were a bunch of fuck-ups whom Geffen wanted to drop. Eddie Rosenblatt wanted to drop the band before Appetite for Destruction ever got recorded. When I came on board and signed a contract with them, apparently, Rosenblatt told a former Geffen A&R executive that he was going to give me 3 months to turn it around and make it look productive. Otherwise, the band was going." Tom didn't tell me that until years later, by the way. But when I came on board, as far as Geffen was concerned, if I didn't make it look real within 3 months, they were going to get dropped. They were hellions. No one wanted to manage them. Why was I managing them? Because everyone else said no. I mean, none of them wanted to do it. I didn't want to do it to start with, either. The seduction for me was actually Slash. When I realized, oh, he's really intelligent and charming. There's a little bit. That's where I started to get sucked in. But I was an authority figure to them all. Now they've gone through all their advances. They were a complete mess. The label wanted to drop them, and that's where I come in the door. When I walk out the door, they just sold Wembley Stadium. I think I did my job. I think I did my job well. And the way I did my job was the way I had to do it to get results. Now, are you going to say that I didn't do my job? Now, after Alan was booted from managing Guns N' Roses in 1991, he was replaced by the band's own tour manager. But Alan says by that time, he had done all the hard work building Guns N' Roses up into international superstardom. He said, "Goldstein was the tour manager. He had nothing to do with forming the marketing strategy that I employed. He was the tour manager." He makes some rather extravagant claims of his significance. And the one thing I will say was, yeah, you were significant as the tour manager. You did a good job as the tour manager, and I could ride on the bus to the next gig knowing he was on it. So Doug is a tour manager. That's what he's good at. And let's get something else straight, because this is not an opinion, it's a matter of history we can all look at. And because it's history, it's incontrovertible. The fact of the matter is, once he and Michelle Anthony pulled their coup, what do we get out of Guns N' Roses? We got the Spaghetti Incident and an Axl Rose solo record masquerading under a GNR logo. And, you know, to me, the biggest sin of the record was it was boring. The Chinese Democracy was a boring record, but calling it Guns N' Roses was not honest. It was totally a solo record, and that's all it has been since 1991. So you have to look at it and go, well, Doug, well, Michelle, that worked out really well, didn't it? All those years were lost. Who knows what that band could have done had it stayed together, had it kept its chemical dynamic. Who knows what they could have written in those 10, 20, 30 years. And next up, there's been a lot of discussion this week about The Who. After the band unceremoniously fired their drummer following a big performance at Royal Albert Hall. Now, previously, vocalist Roger Daltrey had made some interesting comments on stage, seeming as though he was unhappy with the drumming in the band, and instead of handling it behind the scenes, he talked about it on stage. So a lot of people are thinking it's just the band being unhappy with their drummer. It's really interesting, though, because their drummer is the son of Ringo Starr from the Beatles, and he's been a member of the band for 30 years. Very crazy stuff here. Here's what went down with The Who. When a band plays at a legendary venue like the Royal Albert Hall, it's usually a momentous occasion. For The Who, that doesn't appear to be the case. After reports that the band abruptly fired their drummer of nearly 3 decades, as people speculate whether or not it had something to do with this performing ability. That would be quite the surprise, considering drummer Zach Starkey is the son of Beatles legend Ringo Starr. He joined the band all the way back in 1996, and the band's been going strong ever since. But in a statement from a rep for The Who, they said, The band made a collective decision to part ways with Zach after this round of shows at the Royal Albert Hall. They have nothing but admiration for him and wish him the very best for his future. And according to a recent review of a March performance with The Who, vocalist Roger Daltrey apparently complained from the stage about Starkey's drumming. He reportedly said at the time, pausing during the band's final song, "The Song Is Over," and said to the audience, "To sing that song, I do need to hear the key, and I can't. All I've got is drums going boom, boom, boom. I can't sing to that. I'm sorry, guys." Zach alluded to this in a recent post before the word got out publicly, making it sound a little bit different in this tongue-in-cheek response. Here's what he had to say, sharing a picture of him and vocalist Roger Daltrey. He wrote in all caps, "Heard today from an inside source that Roger Daltrey, lead singer and principal songwriter of the group, unhappy with Zach the drummer's performance at the Albert Hall a few weeks ago, is bringing formal charges of overplaying and is literally going to Zach the drummer." And this week we also learned some very sad news. The former drummer of Judas Priest, Les Binks, who became the drummer during a pivotal time in the band's career, has passed away. The band released a heartfelt tribute to him. Here's what we know about the sad situation. Les Binks was a member of Judas Priest from 1977 to 1979, and according to a statement, he has passed away at the age of 73. It was just back in 2022 when Binks would make his first appearance with Judas Priest in 43 years for a momentous occasion, their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Without a doubt, during his tenure in the band, Les Binks left an indelible mark on Judas Priest. Les was a member of the band during a pivotal time in the group's history. Les was born in Northern Ireland on August 8, 1951, and in addition to playing on those records like Stained Class and Killing Machine, also known as Hellbent for Leather, he was also featured on the classic live album Unleashed in the East, released in 1979. He served as a co-writer on the song Beyond the Realms of Death, but he would ultimately leave the band in July of 1979. Now we have a statement just in from Judas Priest. They've released a heartfelt tribute to their former bandmate. This is what they had to say. "We are deeply saddened about the passing of Les and send our love to his family, friends, and fans. The acclaimed drumming he provided was first class, demonstrating his unique techniques, flair, style, and precision. Thank you, Les. Your acclaim will live on." My heart goes out to his family, friends, and former bandmates during this difficult time. And of course, the legendary music that he made with Judas Priest will continue to live on forever. Okay, next up we have Rammstein vocalist Till Lindemann, who has been embroiled in a series of allegations over the last few years, of which he has denied. And he's been fighting back legally about people who have cut ties with him as a result of these allegations, which he says were entirely false. And so he sued a book publishing company that was working with him that opted to terminate his contract. They made some statements about him publicly. And now in a court, a judge has actually sided with him in this matter. Here's what went down. Now, this all initially began back in May of 2023 following a Rammstein concert in Lithuania. Now, a fan named Shelby Lynn came forward and alleged she was invited backstage to meet Till Lindemann. She says that it was clear to her once she met him that she was expected to engage in sexual activity with him. When she declined to do so, she said he became enraged and left the room. Shortly thereafter, they announced that they were conducting a criminal investigation in Berlin. It said at the time that the Berlin Public Prosecutor's Office initiated an investigation into Lindemann on suspicion of sexual offenses and the distribution of narcotics. But about 1 month later, the Berlin Prosecutor's Office closed the investigation, stating that the evidence did not substantiate the allegations and that no charges would be filed. Following these allegations being made publicly, a book company he was working with parted ways with him, and he said they actually didn't have the right to do that and that the allegations were unfounded. And it turns out a judge has ruled in Till Lindemann's favor. His law firm released a letter celebrating the move, which I have translated. The statement says, on June 2nd, 2023, the publishing house Kippenheimer & Witch ended its collaboration with Till Lindemann. On the same day, the publisher released a press statement. According to the statement, the publisher had been following the allegations against Till Lindemann that have become public in recent days. The publisher claimed it had become aware of a pornographic video titled Till the End. According to the publisher, the actions in the video, specifically the degrading treatment of women in connection with the video, and the deliberate use of their book in a pornographic context, mocked the distinction they defended between the lyrical self and the author and artist, thus violating the publisher's values. From the publisher's perspective, this meant Till Lindemann had crossed unyielding boundaries in dealing with women. The press release and the link they shared was widely reported in the media. Till Lindemann filed a lawsuit with the Cologne Regional Court against the termination of the collaboration by Kippenheier and Witch. On April 11, 2025, the Cologne Regional Court ruled in favor of Till Lindemann. According to the court, Kippenheier and Witch did not have a valid reason to terminate the contract. Neither the video Till the End nor the allegations against Lindemann justified the termination. According to the contracts, Kippenheier and Witch was aware of the artistic work and the artistic expressions of the author. Till the End falls under this law and is protected by the artistic freedom guaranteed under Article 5 of the German Basic Law. It added later, the public allegations against Till Lindemann also could not serve as grounds for termination. At most, a suspicion of criminal behavior could be relevant. However, the criminal investigation against Lindemann was dropped. To the extent that the allegations involved morally objectionable behavior, this still did not constitute grounds for termination. Now, one of my favorite things about having my dream job here on Rockfeed is getting to meet musicians that I've looked up to for most of my life. M. Shadow's definitely one of those people, and getting to know him and film interviews with him, you realize he's a world-class person. He's really an interesting guy who has a lot of knowledge about music, marketing, technology, songwriting, just a great dude to talk to. And I really had the honor of going to his home and his home studio and getting to see behind the scenes what it's like, how he's written so much timeless music in that room. It was a really, really cool conversation. Here is what M. Shadows had to say about the amazing music he's written in that home studio.
I think the first record I started writing in here was probably Nightmare.
Really? You wrote Nightmare in here?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, we wrote our first couple records in my mom's garage. Well, we wrote the first record at Huntington Beach High School, basically in guitar class. Me and Zachy wrote it. And then we moved over to my mom's garage. And then when we moved out of the garage, you kind of get like, there's a little bit of superstition. Like, oh, are we going to be able to make a good record somewhere else? But Nightmare came out of here. And now the band, everyone's got individual studios. So it's a lot more streamlined than it was, right? Like we can send each other files and just drop them into Pro Tools and you can kind of work on your own things and then we get together. But Nightmare was the first one.
So it wasn't just, the band was writing stuff here as well for Nightmare?
Oh yeah.
Wow, dude.
Me and Brian and Jimmy would come here daily. And Mike Elizondo would come here and listen to demos and discuss stuff. I used to have where you're sitting, it used to be a drum kit. But like I said, things have been, with technology, things have really streamlined. A lot of times we can program drums now and then we'll get into another studio to record stuff for real. But back in the day, you all had those little mini electronic drum kits that we'd get from like Guitar Center, and everyone would have a little one in their house with a couple toms. And but yeah, technology made things a little more streamlined.
So are you writing pretty much everything vocally in this room? Would you say the overwhelming majority starts here?
No, I would look at. I think my schedule, whether we're working on a record or not, is I like to just get a coffee. I do a vocal lesson every morning from 10 to 11. So I usually wake up around 7:30 with the kids, and then they go to school, and then I'll sit in here with a coffee and just like mess around with ideas. And it could be guitar, it could be vocals, it could be it could just be learning chord changes and phrases that I like from someone else's band, and I'll throw them into Pro Tools and I kind of, figure out what they're doing and like just building the knowledge of things I think sound cool. So really it's just, I would just call this a creative room. I've got my video games in here too.
Yeah.
I do like all my Web3 stuff. I do my keyboards, exploring the studio space, as Joe Breezy would call it, happens in here.
Yeah. This is so cool. It's amazing. And you can tell too, like The seat I'm sitting in, this is a true veteran's chair right here. This has some wear and tear on it. The microphone as well. Can you show the mic? I just want you guys to see, because you guys are going to think this is cool just like I did. You can really tell he really uses that mic. He really is in here working hard. That's genuine wear and tear.
Or I'm chewing on it. I don't know.
Now, this week, of course, we've got lots of new music coming out. An interesting announcement from Marilyn Manson, who revealed he has covered the Phil Collins classic In the Air Tonight, and he's released it, but he's releasing it in a different way. Physical copies only, and those copies quickly sold out. So those of you who've gotten that cover, you've really got music history there, because it's not something that's available to everyone on streaming services. It's very scarce. And I think it's an interesting way for bands to release new music going forward. Plus, we've got a new single from The Devil Wears Prada. The new single called For You is out everywhere now. I've been a fan of these guys for a long time, and they've consistently put out great music. So it's cool to see that trend is definitely continuing. Plus, we've got a big tour announcement, a co-headliner from the legend Alice Cooper and the legendary Judas Priest. Hitting the road. I've got the tour dates up on your screen now. Definitely go see that show. Put on an amazing performance. Both of these bands are known for their incredible live performances, so you don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Rock Feed After Dark. It means a lot. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on for the daily breaking news and updates and this weekly show. And also shout out to the Feed fam. Your support means the world to me. And of course, you're directly supporting this channel. And with that, I'll see you all very soon.